Here's how you can be doxxed through your Google account, and the problem is in Google's password reset form. Also in your hacking news roundup, a worker at a 3-letter agency turns traitor, and a mysterious figure is targeting ransomware gangs. But first, just a couple of scripts are all that stands in the way of cybercriminals resolving your Google account's email address to your phone number. Now, this wouldn't be much of a problem if SIM swapping wasn't such a big deal. With SIM swapping often leading to millions of dollars being stolen, high-profile accounts being hacked, and even people being kidnapped, most sensible people nowadays won't give away their phone number to just anyone. But most people aren't quite as protective over their email address, which makes this a bit of a problem. Luckily, this unintended functionality in Google's password reset form was discovered by the security researcher Bruteforcing before cyber bad guys could exploit it for evil. But how did this work? When you use Google's account recovery form, you'll first be asked for your phone number, after which you'll need to enter your full name before you get the option of receiving an account recovery code. If the phone number and the name don't match, you'll get an account not found error. So the theory here is that if you can find a way to bypass Google's rate limiting and their annoying captchas, you could simply brute force all the millions of possible phone numbers to find the one that matches the name of the person you want to dox. The first discovery that made this possible was that Google has a version of their password reset form that works without JavaScript. This is important because anti-bot solutions are heavily reliant on JavaScript in order to work. Without JavaScript, Google doesn't know whether it's dealing with a bot or an actual human. In order to bypass IP rate limiting, Bruteforcing registered a hell of a lot of IP addresses and wrote a script to cycle the IP for each request. And it worked. Here, he brute forced the phone number for the account named Henry Chancellor. But despite the fact this works, it requires you know the full name of a person's Google account, and the goal here is to resolve someone's email directly to their phone number. This was a bit of a problem, because as our researcher explains, in the past couple of years, Google changed their policy to only show you the display name of a Google account if it's interacted with you in some way, and Google has updated all of their services to take note of this change. But they missed one, Looker Studio. I'd never heard of it before this. It's a data visualization tool that you can use to visualize data, and a bug in it meant that just by sharing a document with someone's email address, it would give you their full name. At this point, Bruteforcing was able to put a script together to handle the full attack chain, taking an email address as input and returning its phone number. The brute forcing would take anywhere from a few minutes to just a couple of seconds, depending on the country code of the person you were trying to dox. But unfortunately for cyber bad guys, Bruteforcing reported this to Google, who awarded him $5,000 for his efforts and deprecated their no JavaScript account recovery form for good. Next up, let's take a look at what the feds have been up to. You guys came up with some pretty good suggestions for what we should call this segment. My two favourites are, what have the feds been up to this week? And FedWatch. Which works best? Let me know down in those comments. So first, in this week's Fed activities, we have some alleged treachery within America's Department of Defense. Enter 28-year-old Nathan Villas Latch. Since 2019, he's been working as a computer scientist at the DoD, or more specifically, the Defense Intelligence Agency, which operates under the DoD. Nathan wasn't very happy about the re-election of President Trump last year, so much so that according to court documents, he reached out to a foreign government, identified only as Country 1, saying, "I do not agree or align with the values of this administration. To this end, I am willing to share classified information that I have access to." Nathan's first alleged mistake was not reaching out to a country that would take his office seriously, instead contacting a foreign government described as friendly to the United States, which proceeded to forward his email straight to the FBI, who took up the case. Undercover agents posing as representatives of Country 1 asked Nathan to provide a sample of classified data so it could be reviewed and authenticated. He allegedly agreed, spending hours at his desk in the DoD copying out classified data from his computer to handwritten notes that he then folded up and slipped into his socks when leaving the office. Nathan then made his second alleged mistake, and this was a big one. After typing up his notes, he agreed to load them onto a USB stick, which he would then physically drop at a predefined park in Arlington, Virginia. The feds then just sat in wait and surveilled him dropping the stick, confirming who their suspect was. Nathan wasn't explicitly after money, rather he asked for citizenship from the unnamed country, but added that he wasn't opposed to other forms of compensation. He exchanged a few more messages with the undercover feds before eventually agreeing to another dead drop, but this time, upon dropping the USB stick, he was promptly arrested. And next, a Joe Biden-themed carding marketplace has just been taken out by the feds. In many ways, BidenCash was just like any other carding marketplace. They made it easy for cyber bad guys to buy stolen credit cards with crypto. But these guys were masters at marketing. For starters, their central theme was Joe Biden. Even at the login page, you'd be served one of 5 flavors of Joe. The marketplace got a lot of attention when in 2022 they gave away 1 million credit cards. They quite literally published a CSV with the details of over 1 million cards. And it didn't matter that the vast majority of the cards on this list were old and didn't work, it was the attention they were after, and they got a lot of it. The marketplace had a ClearNet domain, and much of the time it was being indexed by Google, so it was easy for noobs to just Google the site and to try their hand at credit card fraud. Famously, BidenCash was selling stolen credit cards for as little as 15 cents. The marketplace repeated their free credit card stunt on their first birthday, but this time giving away 2 million cards. But now, thanks to a joint operation involving Dutch and US authorities, BidenCash is no more, with 145 domains being seized. The DOJ says that the site had over 117,000 customers, facilitating the sale of over 15 million credit cards, generating revenue in excess of $17 million. However, as far as we know, no arrests were made, so maybe, just maybe, the site will reappear with new branding. Next up, a government-approved mobile phone has been smuggled out of North Korea, and it's pretty terrifying. Unfortunately, the phone landed in the hands of the BBC rather than a tech journalist, so we don't have a proper write-up with all the juicy technical details, but the BBC did make some interesting discoveries. So North Korea started building out their 4G infrastructure a couple years ago and importing second-hand Huawei devices to help modernize their network. This could be one of those. The device, of course, has no internet access, but it does come with a messenger app, which has some strange censorship features. Kim apparently doesn't like people using words popularized by South Korean media, one being oppa. Its dictionary definition in Korean is older brother, but thanks to K-dramas and K-pop, its meaning has broadened to include male friends and boyfriends, or at least that's how Grok describes it. This isn't really my area, I'm not much for Koreaboo. Anyway, Kim Jong-un is keen to stamp out any and all South Korean linguistic imperialism, so when you type oppa, the phone changes it in real time to comrade, and you get a little warning that oppa should only be used to describe your siblings. For another example, if you type the word South Korea, it's changed in real time to puppet state. Elsewhere on the device, the BBC discovered that every 5 minutes the phone takes a screenshot and saves it to a folder which the user has no permissions to access. Only law enforcement can access these images. For our next story, ransomware gangs better watch out because Gang Exposed is out and about. This Telegram channel, run by some unknown individual, has spent the past few weeks making life very difficult for some alleged Russian cybercriminals. Gang Exposed spawned on Telegram last month, claiming he was going to publish unique information about TrickBot, Conti and Blackbuster, 3 Russian cybercrime groups that have spent the past few years launching ransomware attacks and probably becoming very rich in the process. Gang Exposed pledged to provide the world with evidence that will accelerate their capture. No rumours, only facts backed by real data. And for context, these aren't small, irrelevant groups. The US government is offering rewards of up to $10 million in exchange for the identities of these guys. And deliver, Gang Exposed most definitely did. His first target was Vitaly Kovalev, who he accused of being the ringleader of TrickBot and Conti. This was a full-on dox, including passport numbers, driver's license, tax IDs, as well as details on the shell companies that this guy allegedly runs. Gang Exposed also claims that this guy co-founded Russia's largest crypto conference, Blockchain Forum, which will hold its next gathering in Moscow next April. And whilst sure, anyone can spin up a Telegram channel and start making accusations, just a couple weeks later, German police seems to have taken notice of Gang Exposed and put out an Interpol red notice for Vitaly Kovalev. But Gang Exposed hasn't stopped there. He's exposed various other people he claims are key players in these ransomware groups, in many cases publishing the raw data of his investigations. He also published leaked chat messages from these groups, and even a couple videos which he says show ransomware gang members aboard a private jet for a birthday party. As for how he obtains all of this data, we're not talking scraping Facebook here. In an interview with the Register, he describes that he often conducts his investigations using less than legal sources. In some cases, we're talking darknet doxing services, and he claims to have access to a leaked Russian border control database, which is apparently quite pricey. But who's behind this mysterious persona? He claims to be an independent, anonymous investigator, not affiliated with any organizations or governments. And strangely, he's made it very clear that he has no interest in claiming those multi-million-dollar bounties put out by the feds, leading some to think that he might be an ex-member of these groups, perhaps with a bit of a grudge against his former bosses. Or maybe it's a three-letter agency behind Gang Exposed, just attempting to sow mistrust amongst Russian cybercriminals. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.